blessing to pay this work forward. For me, the term blessing came from honoring the great Elijah Cummings, the late Elijah Cummings, Congressman Cummings, who during my time at Howard, HU, there we go. He was speaking to a group of us faculty, and it was a faculty of color conference. I'm in the back of the room, listening to his wisdom, talking about his father. And what he says is his father, in dropping him off, didn't have much to give him. As he's dropping him off there at Howard University, he's like, you know, back in the day, in the 60s, there's all kinds of protests, and he wanted to make sure I didn't get in trouble. So he's like, remember what you're here to do. And he's like, gives him only $20 he had. And he said, you're here to get blessed so that you can bless others. And he talked about the work that we do, especially as educators, as scholars, as advocates, is to bless those so that we can continue those blessings. And the way he spoke to that history and that concept, you bet I was an emotional mess in the back. Someone who spoke to the importance of what we do and why we do. And that's why we're here, is to continue those blessings so that our community, our students, our comunidad, our familia, people around us can continue those blessings. That's the power of what we do. So when I say it is a blessing to be here, it really is a blessing on multiple levels. I want to invite my colega, Magda Martinez here, who's going to be joining me. We're going to try to do this together. I know we're queued up on some time. I try to remind myself not to overtalk because, you know, you give me the podium, I will keep it going. Energizer Bunny style. Orale, let's keep it going. So very quickly, I want to make sure I cue us up. My wonderful colega Magda, we have some history together and some shared powerful moments of empowering uplift. The idea for us, let me make sure I get, is to keep, well, there we go. No, see, no, I'm pressing the wrong one. There we go. During these times, it's important to always reflect on the vision of our organization. And it's not something that's going to always stay stagnant. We revisited this as a board about 3 years ago, came together. We were compelled to make sure that we revisit this every now and then to reflect and think about what does that look like for us in continuing this work, right? What does it look like to reflect on this constantly and remind ourselves, because during these times when we're being challenged and we question why, or we question how do we move in these next steps, is we have to think about the why, right? Especially as an organization, we have to defend the why, right? So it's always important. So I always want to think about that, as well as not just our mission statement, but our vision and our core values, so that you also work with us to remind us, that you also work with us to hold us accountable, that we also work with us to grow and evolve this good work, right? Because those are the conversations that we aspire to continuously have. So these are important things to continue to be a part of and reflect on and grow with. It's also important to acknowledge that we have a process for regarding discrimination and harassment. We always like to show this and make sure that you work with us. We want to ensure that we grow and improve and do the good work as a community and to be responsible and to be held accountable in this regard. Doctora.
Buenos dias, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Magdalena Martinez. I hope I've had a chance to introduce myself to everyone here today. I've been a part of AAHHE for over 2 decades. I first participated as a graduate student fellow. I was nominated by Silvia Hurtado when I was at Michigan, and I reminded her of that today while we were having breakfast. So this idea of passing on blessings is so powerful and so important. And we would not be able to do that without our generous sponsors. So what I'd like to do is just do very quickly a review of the individuals, the organizations that have supported our work, our vision, our mission, and this idea of passing forward those blessings. So they have enabled us and our blessings themselves. And so I want to recognize, if you are here, represent any of these organizations, please stand up. UTEP, Diana Natalicio, I practice too. Institute for Hispanic Student Success, Stage Publication, ETS, the Hispanic Outlook in Higher Education, Johns Hopkins University Press. And our Diamante conference sponsor, of course, is TIAA. Woo! Yes, thank you.
Some love, everybody.
And our Amber conference sponsors, the Chronicle of Higher Education, Mount St. Antonio College. Our Jade conference sponsors, the Center for Health Equity at the University of Colorado, William Patterson University, Lumina Foundation. And last but not least, of course, is the Latino Cultural Arts Center. So I'm going to pass it back to you, and then you'll see me in a few minutes.
I always like to call our fellows programs the heart and soul of our why and what we do. And we want to make sure we continuously grow and support and evolve in this good work, as it's important. It's at the end of the day, when I see other organizations doing this great work and find out what's our niche as an organization, historically, what's been our contribution. And it's developing that Latine scholarly pathway and growing that. We need more like us, right? We need more to be inclusive of the diaspora, of our intersectionalities, and not just in the professoriate, but in all the spaces that we continue the blessings forward, right? And in leadership. And that's our fellows program. I want to thank wonderful colleague from Lumina Foundation, Jasmine Haywood. She wasn't able to join us. When you all see her, make sure you show her the love. We really appreciate her, and I go back some, and I'm glad that she was able to join us and support not just the work of AAHHE as a board member, but also done good work in working with the grad fellows in particular. I know Stacy's always texting me like, "Yo, you did a good job bringing her to the board." I was like, "Thanks, I got one thing right." Woo! So we'll appreciate Jasmine and show her the love. I do want to take at this time to invite our wonderful, amazing co-chairs, our chair and co-chair, Luz and Stacy, Stacy, to come up here. Ay, cuidado. These two amazing, powerful hermanas are not only doing the great work, be careful back there, but also doing the transformational work to continue those blessings. So we want to show them a lot of love. Thank you. Gracias. It's all yours.
Thank you.
I try to give you some extra time too.
Gracias. I was like, where's the bad bunny? Well, thank you so much, Cristobal, Magdalena. We're going to kick off with our Graduate Student Fellows Program kind of year in review. We're really excited to share this information. And eventually, I won't have my chair anymore because in about 6 weeks, she'll be dropping off because we'll be introducing or electing new leadership. But I'm really excited about the new leadership because we have some awesome fellows. And so I know we're just going to be better, stronger, greater. Oh, this slide. Yeah, my closing chair. Loose. Okay, here we go. All right, so we just want to acknowledge our amazing e-board. If you could just stand, we have Armando Lizarraga. Did he make it yet? No. Okay. All right. So he's our social media chair. He'll actually be coming in as chair because Ariana, who was our current chair, is actually coming off. She's already served her 2 years. Ariana Garcia. And we have Mitzi and Claudia, who couldn't join us this time because they were both really ill during this time. So please send up a prayer. But they were our alumni our alumni relations chair and co-chair. So Mitzi will be doing her next year with us as chair, and Claudia will be coming off since she's already put in her 2 years. And then Gabrielle, this is a new position. Gabrielle, would you like to stand? We were so excited about this position because we actually were very intentional this past year of recruitment and what that looked like, and setting up an actual system to not just recruit, but intentionally recruit in spaces and places that we have not recruited before. And we'll actually go into that a little bit more as we continue the presentation. So I'll briefly just talk about a new initiative that we did this last year, where we had just dynamite women come in during a panel, like a virtual panel session, to speak to prospective graduate student fellow program applicants, right? Like, if you're interested, let's tell you about the application process, because we did revamp the application, not just last year, but we made a couple more changes for this upcoming year, which leads me to the new application cycle. In previous years, our GSFP program, the application would open in the summertime, and we were selecting fellows kind of at the end of August, just when the new academic school year began. This year, however, we decided to follow application cycles that coincide with other fellowship programs, and so we actually opened it up January 6th. So we are actually very open and active and receiving applications. We see them coming into our Gmail. We're really excited about that. And it closes on March 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Central Time. So if you are in the building, and I'm looking at some already, and you are trying to apply, go ahead. The application is open. You have until March 31st. And we actually have this webinar that we did in December on our website, so that you can go back, look at the discussions we had. We had the alumni GSFP come back to talk about what their process was like, what we're looking for, different things to kind of look out for. But you have until March 31st, and we'll actually be selecting our 2026 cohort on May 30th. So that's something that we've never done before, but we did that intentionally so that we can have a lot more time to do some of the logistics with them throughout the summer, and then programming will begin in September like it always does. Okay.
So going on to the application cycle, this is just the data we do have from 2005 to the current. You see we had a little dip from the pandemic. So really, when the height of the pandemic, we had a peak, which we assumed that was also the first time the GFP fellowship was virtual, and we've maintained that same structure. We're still not necessarily increasing, which is okay, because we only got 10 spots, so it's all good. It's already competitive enough, but we do aim to increase that number, hopefully this year, and you'll see why. So we did targeted recruitment, as Stacy shared. So if you look at this pie chart from 2020 to 2023, and this is the data we do have available, because part of the changes to the application process was actually capturing demographic data and not just assume Latina means everyone, and you'll see why. And so we ask questions like, how do you self-identify racially? How do others on the street racialize you? Because those are two different things. What is your tribal affiliations, if you have any? Gender. We also ask sexual orientation, which are things that have not been asked historically in the process, so that we can be more targeted. And so as you can see, the reason I'm only sharing this pocket is because the statistics are not that different. If you go back to the beginning of GSP, majority is Mexican American, Chicano, Chicanx, 14% was roughly multi-ethnic, 5% Dominican, less than 4% Colombian. So you see we have a huge pocket that we're missing in when we're talking about the Caribbean and Latin America and Central America. So this is just from 2020 to 2023. So our continued areas of growth is increasing racial representation, particularly Black and Indigenous communities within the Americas, increasing Central American, South American, and Caribbean representation. We've done better with Caribbean representation. We have added some more Central American representation with this cohort, and so we're still expanding on that. So we did an HBCU and regional recruitment plan. All of us had a region that we targeted, and as you can see, these were the regions. And each school, you'll see Region 1, 24 universities that we individually emailed ourselves and targeted doctoral programs. That could be the dean, that could be the graduate school, individual graduate programs. And then we also emailed all HBCUs to apply. Stacy compiled that information for us. And so we targeted all HBCUs with doctoral programs. Obviously, we didn't catch all the universities, but this was in an attempt to increase our reach and our capacity. Recruitment considerations were not to prioritize, unfortunately, California, Nevada, Texas, and Arizona based on past statistics. That's been our bread and butter. Prioritize states that have been underrepresented. So that's why we went back to certain regions. We wanted to increase East Coast, Midwest, and Southeast applicants and get increased numbers of applicants from HBCUs and MSIs. And so that's going to continue being our focus moving forward, which Stacy will continue.
So this is a look at the program schedule that our 2024-2025 fellows went through. So just kind of a glimpse, right? We had 4 sessions in the fall. We had 4 sessions in the spring. And you can see some of our speakers, where they came from, and some of the things that we wanted to initiate this time around. We had Dr. Omi, Dr. Nana, Dr. Wilde Pilar, but we actually went back and reached out to some of our graduate student fellow program alum so that we can start to bridge some, like, you know, just past knowledge, right? Like, I'm a firm believer of like knowing where you came from so that we can know where we're going. And so Dr. Wilde Pilar, we had Dr. Jasmine Haywood, who's our board liaison, speak to the fellows and just kind of like chop it up on like a very unofficial, just very laid back, chill conversation so that our current fellows can know what those experiences looked like during their time, which was in like the mid 2000s, right? And where we're going and the new initiatives. And of course, you know, if you're a member of the organization, you know, que estamos en familia, right? It was an instant connection, instant network opportunity. And it was like building those relationships so that our current fellows know that this goes beyond the current, right, status or the present moment, right? So that they can have an affiliation and connection with our past members and alum.
So this is a snapshot of the current cohort. And as you can see, these are the different areas they're representing. So for the most, I think we met our goals of spreading beyond California, Nevada, and Texas. We got some Texas. We were very intentional of creating PhDs and EDD and creating space for that so that folks can be here. We have some folks from social work, bioengineering. We're still trying to work harder on increasing our STEM representation within the cohort. That's an area that has been ebb and flowing, but we've been trying for the past few years. And so that's going to continue. Counseling, biochemistry, and American studies. So you can see that we're branching out from higher education because we got to go. Like, Latinas are everywhere. We got it spread out. We have 4 that are pre-candidacy, which might have changed already because we had a bunch of people present their proposals already. So they're already there. Proposal stage and candidates, anticipated year for the most part are coming up. So you see the split, folks graduating this year, next year, and then the following year. Ethnicity, nationality, and keep in mind, I'm using language that people are familiar with, but this is not encompass like indigenous identity in any way, shape, or form. But we have Cuban American, Salvadorian, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Hondurans, Brazilian, Guatemalan, Chicana, Mexican and Sicilian, and Mayan Mexican, which is a pretty rounded group of people. We are predominantly women in the cohort. So I would say we need to help our cis men, but you know, we here. y'all have programs. We still are encouraging y'all to apply, but historically it's been male dominated. So it's not an area, it is not an area of concern at the moment because we know men will still apply. Broadly speaking, queer, most of the cohort is queer in any way, shape, or form. So it's a big umbrella of that. We have one person that identified as heterosexual and then two prefer not to disclose. And so this information is important because we haven't collected this historically, right? And so what does that mean? And folks don't realize that over the past 5 years, if y'all were at a conversation, I think we were having a breakfast, and over the past 5 years, there's been huge changes in the way the cohort, the community, and it's been because of Black, Indigenous, Caribbean, queer people in leadership position. And so that's important to acknowledge, right? So if you know any cis men who need some love, do tell them to apply. But, you know, we're here.
All right, so this is our favorite part of the program. At this time, if we could have Ariana and Gabriel come up. We started a new initiative this year where we're gonna call up each fellow one by one, and we actually have pins for you all that say GSFP alum at the bottom, like GSFP with alum at the bottom. So kind of replicate to like the symbolism of a pinning ceremony, but like technically, after today, you all will be alum of the Graduate Student Fellows Program, right? So we want to acknowledge that and love on you all, but the work doesn't stop, right? We're hoping that a lot of you, if not all of you, decide to apply for some sort of leadership position. Oh, right. And another new initiative we started was that because the application process started earlier this year, they actually still have work to do in the organization because they're going to be helping us actually, you know, go through the applications this year and help us pick the next cohort. So we're excited about that. So it ain't over just yet. All right, so we'll start with Daniel Aguilar. And if you could just come up and kind of stand one by one because we want to take a group picture at the end of it. So Danielle, she's from School of Education, University of Colorado, Boulder. So we are home, right, Danielle? There we go. All right, next we have Sydney Caradona, Ed Leadership and Policy, University of Utah. Yeah, that's fine. We also have Jocelyn Castillo, American Studies major from the University of New Mexico. Jocelyn, hey girl. We have Allison Nicole Martinez Mejia. She's actually not with us this time around. Let's keep her in our hearts and minds. Yeah, biomedical engineering, Washington University of St. Louis. Pero we have her compañero, Gerson Moreno Romero, also from the Washington U as a biomedical engineering major. Yes. I love the wave, Gerson. We have Ariana Ordonez, joint doctorate in ed leadership and from the University of California, San Diego and California State University, San Marcos. Ariana. We have Derek Rafael Pacheco, who also couldn't be with us today. He is a higher ed in the Department of Ed Leadership and Policy Studies from FSU, Florida State University. My Florida people, I see you. And then we have Lucia Quesada, Counseling Psychology from the University of Georgia. Lucy. Armando, when you get a chance, you can come up because we're going to take a group shot with them. Just them, and then I know. My bad. Armando, our current chair of social media. Yes. Making us extremely visible all over the web. All right. Okay, so we have Irene Richardson, biochemistry from University of Nevada, Reno. Irene also couldn't be with us. She got sick just before the conference, but we were able to, she was one of our presenters and we were able to show her yesterday virtually. So we could give Irene a round of applause. Sol Macias Thomas from the University of St. Thomas in Houston, Texas. Sol had a journey. She just landed like an hour ago, Dito, like so many flight delays yesterday. So we're so happy that she was able to make it. Sol. And last but certainly not least, my Howard University sister from another mister, my Boricua sister from another mister. We have Melanice Wesley, social work from Howard University. HU? Diablo Cristobal. All right. That's everybody, right? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna take a group photo. If we could just, if y'all could line up in the middle, because that'll be right on top of you guys. Should they, is the one line okay? Like, can you see everybody? Give them a round of applause. And then I was gonna say one with the leadership. Is that okay?
I think we should probably get it in front of them. Yeah. They're not Megan Thee Stallion. Okay, Stacey.
Okay. All right. At this time, we'll have our faculty fellows program colegos come up and introduce their program. Where?
Oh, wrong way. All right, so that's our next generation of scholars, our next generation of change makers, our next generation of academic community leaders. And thank you so much, everyone, for your attention. I had a partner in crime, Hugo Garcia, who's here with me. And at this point, we'd like to introduce the 2025 AAHHE Faculty Fellows. And so for those of you that are not too familiar with the program, this is one of two signature programs that AAHHE has really poured a lot of love and care into for decades. And our Faculty Fellows program is now open for applications. So if you know someone or if you yourself are interested, we encourage you to apply. Every year, we have the distinct honor to review applications of pre-tenure assistant professors from around the country. And the requirements are broadly that you are committed to Latinx scholarship and practice. And so this year, we again had the distinct privilege to be able to review a variety of applications, all very impressive in terms of the work that they're doing inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And we also look for their future goals, right? And so the purpose of this fellowship program is really to build community, while at the same time talking about that hidden curriculum that sometimes is not discussed in graduate school and in the academy when you're tenure track. And we do this over the course of 6 to 7 months. We bring the fellows together once they're selected. And I'll have Diego say a few words about the individuals that were generous with their time and joining us for these webinars.
And you heard correct. She did call me Diego. She is constantly calling me Diego.
I don't know why. I really don't. You look like a Diego. I think your middle name is Diego. You're just not telling me. Hugo Diego Garcia is his name at AAHHE.
So now
Hugo.
she's planted the seed, and now everyone's going to start calling me Diego. So there you go. There you go. I know. One of the other things I want to say is if you are a current or past graduate student fellow, you are more than welcome to apply to our faculty fellows program, because many of our current faculty fellows members have participated in the graduate student fellowship. So it's one of those things that we want to continuously support our community, ensuring that, what we provide as graduate student fellows, we continue to augment and enhance as faculty fellows, because there are certain things that you want to hear again. There are certain things that we want to elaborate and expand upon from the program, from the graduate student fellows to the faculty fellows. So that's part of what we do. The other thing is we also collaborated. We had a few sessions together with the graduate student fellows because it is mutually beneficial. So one of them was with Dr. Anita Tijerina Revilla, who talked about spirituality and navigating academia and the challenges of some of the spaces in which we're in. And we had wonderful conversations, and we had very deep and emotional conversations that sometimes we have to discuss in these safe spaces. And so those are the kind of conditions that we try to create in these meetings that we have. And again, we also have Melissa Martinez, Aaron Doran, Cristobal Salinas, Lucia Gutierrez, Guillermo Ortega, and Alicia Provencio, who provided additional support on what we do. So I'll go ahead and stop there, and we'll start introducing our faculty fellows. Our first one is Angelica Amezcua, who is an assistant professor of Spanish at the University of Washington.
And if we could kindly have the fellows come up and join us on the stage, like the graduate student fellows as well. And we asked the fellows to share a quote with them as they're coming up here. And now I'm going to ask Nora Cisneros, who we didn't get her quote, so if she'd like to share a quote, but no pressure, who is an assistant professor of ethnic studies at California State University in Bakersfield. Come on in, Nora.
Our next faculty fellow is Nikolaos Espitia, who's an assistant professor of social work at Oakland University.
Wait till he comes up. If we could have Ángel de Jesus González, who is an assistant professor, California State University, Fresno. Sounds like he's got a fan club here.
All right, our next faculty fellow is Susana Hernandez, assistant professor at Northern Arizona University.
If we could have Rocio Mendoza, University of Redlands, assistant professor.
Someone who does not need an introduction. Natalie Munoz, Assistant Professor at Rutgers University, Newark.
Marco Murillo from Santa Clara University, Assistant Professor of Education and Counseling.
Jose Ortiz, Assistant Professor, State University of New York at Portland.
Mayra Puente, Assistant Professor, University of California, Santa Barbara. Looks like she could not be with us this morning.
Amanda Rodriguez Newhall, Assistant Professor, Cal Poly Pomona.
And Julie Vanegas. Vanegas. Julie with us today. She's not with us this morning. Let's keep her in our thoughts and in our hearts, as our colleagues said earlier, from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley.
Christian Vasquez, Assistant Professor, University of Texas at Arlington.
Karina, are you here, Karina? Karina, let's give a hand for Karina Vilna, University of Texas at San Antonio.
And Melanie Solner, Assistant Professor at New Mexico Highlands University.
This is our 2025 AAHHE Faculty Fellows cohort. Let me get a group picture.
Thank you. Thank you for putting all those presentations for us together.
What was that?
Thank you for having.
Thank you.
No, not a problem, not a problem.
And of course, the tradición will continue with our incoming co-chairs, Herman Diaz and Melissa Navarro. If you're here, kindly stand up and wave. They will be your new points of contacts, and of course, we'll continue to serve as a resource for them as they transition into these roles. Thank you, everyone, so much for your attention. How are we doing on time? Beautiful. Okay. I think we might even, Cristobal, might have a little time to stretch your legs. We actually finished 5 minutes early, but I don't think Cristobal is going to make us go right through. Okay.
All right. Felicidades, congratulations to all of our fellows. There's always a part of me that feels that there's so much incredible, powerful intellect that is out there. Sometimes I feel that we wish we could admit more, wish we could have more. This community and space is important. It's always a dance of, financial support, and always figuring out how do we just keep it growing, and because that's important. We're going to be a little bit early, which is great because, Michael Benitez has promised me, because it's his house, and he's broken this stage a few times, which, by the way, I think we signed an agreement. We're not liable for any building structures coming down, but he is going to bring his house down in some form or fashion. Michael Benitez is not only an internationally recognized advocate, scholar, voice, but a voice of la comunidad, right? And a visionary when we think about where do we want to go? Where do we need to go? Where do we need to be? Asking those deep, powerful questions. He just came back last night from NADAHE conference, National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Ed, who I got to give a lot of love and shout out to because they filed a legal challenge against this administration. And it's because of voices and advocates and leaders like him to stand up and challenge. And because they stood up and challenged, that's allowed others to stand up with them, or to at least have the strength. And so suddenly you have now associations that were not as willing before to say, you know what, we need to go in together, we need to be united. And it's a process. But because of that leadership, we talk about standing up and advocating and bringing that voice. It's transformational work. It's spaces we need to be in. And without the work and contributions and voice of people like Michael Benitez, you have to beg the question, where would you be? Where we would be at that point, or at this point. Michael Benitez has not only contributed to our scholarly community in multiple ways regarding racial identity, social justice, intersectionality, multicontextuality in multiple ways to really bring this work and advance this work, but to then bring it home in a space like Metro State Denver and to be committed to us as an organization and to be our host and support us. I have to give him much, much thanks, and will continuously thank him for that. But I told him earlier, this is your house. You give it to us. Bring us that vision that we need in this time. Break the stage, he said. All right, break the stage. It's your stage. We're not paying for it if you actually break it. But without further ado, let's get empowered, motivated, get some of that vision. Michael Benitez, come out here, my man. Hermano.
Gracias, bro.
Échale duro.
Tú sabes, bro. Gente. Mira, Cristóbal, papito. Qué gusto es como me introduciste, hermano. Tengo mucho cariño, mucho amor por todo el trabajo que tú haces, que ustedes están haciendo aquí, for everything you're doing. AAHHE, thank you for the invitation to the board members. It's an absolute pleasure to be here kicking it with us. So thank you very much to invite me to offer the closing plenary. It's always humble. The shit is, man, you grow up. You grow up in communities where you're told por tu mamá all the time que mira, no te olvides de dónde viene y tus raíces, la comunidad, la familia. Y todavía hay momentos, there's a lot of moments, right, when we get into the spaces and we have to figure out what the hell happens when cultural humility does not comprehend dominant arrogance. Then how do we communicate? And so we got to turn that into cultural cocky. And that's how we show up in spaces of higher ed. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to my my frat brother, but also just my dude, my fam, my brother, Manny. Love you, bro. To AAHHE for doing this work, to Cristóbal for working and making this comunidad happen. And then let me get this popping because we don't have a lot of time and I got a lot of shit to say. All right? First, let me introduce myself, my native tongue, Usawayu, Yukayu, Bumbara, Maboya, Ya, Guabanara. That basically means peace and blessings, good day. It's truly a pleasure to be here. Guatiao, family, relatives. And then Diri, my name is Michael Benitez of Afro-Taino Boricua descent. I don't really do well with the titles that the U.S. ascribes to understand that Hispanic and Latino have a very important element to it. Because when you ask me, bro, like, are you Democrat, bro? Are you Republican? What's your political affiliation? I say, I'm Latino. That's my political affiliation. My race ethnicity is Afro-Taino Boricua. My political affiliation Latinos because there is power in collective gathering, in collective preservation, in the way that we come together because it's not about us. It's about who we serve and how we serve. And that's how we need to come together. So I have a slide presentation because I really want to stick to the theme here, right? Pero you know, I cannot, as a poet, start this without first spitting a little something to ground us. This one's called a different kind of migration. Because so often we don't talk about the case of Puerto Rico becoming citizens back in 1904. Isabela Gonzalez, who had to fight real hard to be able to gain entry into New York, until she called out the U.S. and she was like, "Pero qué le pasa a ustedes si nosotros no cogimos de España y ahora no podemos entrar a los Estados Unidos? What's wrong with y'all?" And then in 1917, that led to the Jones Act. And then everyone there after 1889, or on April 11, 1889, was able to then pass as a citizenship and considered a citizen of the United States. I share that because that's such an untold story about Puerto Ricans. Like Puerto Ricans always had citizenship, but it took a badass Latina woman. I mean, like, well, history, badass Latina woman making the world go round. Yes? Look, men get props all the time, so I want to salientize and put that out there. So here it is, a different type of migration. 1983 this. Yo. This is the year I was introduced to skyscrapers and sidewalks, tall bricks and cylinder buildings, rats. Yo, rats the size of cats, pigeons with more courage than hawks, customs of all sorts, veiling, hiding, pain, hurt, loss, this. A poverty not so poor but rich, yet poor like limiting self from being. People who look like me, people who speak like me, who act like me, but we're not me. Because loss of culture ain't no joke. And cultural genocide is a result of white cloaks, blue suits, blue and red tie bearers. This is the year I experienced a different type of migration, a subtle type, a chosen type, a forceful type, a migratory type. This was my introduction to migration. Pero mira loco, que, brothers and sisters wanting to spar because I made assumptions. Shirt ripped off, fist clenched, knuckles forged, battle stand, brown face, black face, pero te cargo encima de verdad, carajo. Shirt ripped off, fist clenched, knuckles forged, battle stand, brown face, black face. Man, how was I supposed to know the homie was Dominican? Now, we share differentiated but similar paths of colonial violent histories imposed upon our ancestors, passed down through genetic and metaphysic waves of historic trauma, and on many occasions from our very own mamas and our very own papas. And here I thought everyone speaking Spanish who ended up in the city of no sleep and hustle, grind, mambo, and hip-hop was Boricua. A different kind of migration, one of belonging and one not of belonging, one of citizenship carved in second-class imperial ventures. Not here, build a wall, speak right, boat rider. Not here, build a wall, speak right, boat rider, a different kind of migration, because colonial histories are told by dictators and conquistadores. 1, 4, 9, dos, this. This was the first known hurricane that hit the land of Borinquen, Hurricane Columbus. My ancestors, the Arawak Taino people, will come to know. My ancestors, enslaved African people, will come to know. Violent, cunning, deceptive, but in human form was a fucking idiot called Chris who got lost in the ocean mad times. It was the deadliest hurricane. Welcome, strangers, red people, sharp swords, kill them all. Welcome, strangers, red people, sharp swords, kill them all. The common thread, now Spanish. The other common thread, colonialism. You see, Boricua people, we weren't meant to survive. 5, 2, 5, this. This is the number of years the land of Puerto Rico has been under colonial rule. Spanish, English, move family, travel to U.S. Spanish, English, move family, travel to U.S. 2017. This is the year Hurricane Trump hit the island, but the powers that be called it Maria. Pain, death, despair, and hope. Pain, death, despair, and hope. You see, Boricuas, we are everywhere. My island, I leave. My island, I miss you. You see, we don't choose to move. We have to move. We have to migrate so that neoliberal colonizers can buy and build and sell and push out. So we live and remake and someday and push out and we live and remake and someday. Revolution, independence, revolution, independence, liberation. It's just a different type of migration. Gratitude. Now here we are, 2025, under that same hurricane. And let me be clear, porque gente, I understand very well the numbers, the data, what's going on. I understand very well, if you understand our histories, that not all Latinos are going to identify in liberal ways. I understand very well, and you should know, and you should too, if you understand how we got here, how the landscape changes. So I'm not here to diss or play politics or talk about what's bad or wrong, but I am going to talk about what's fucked up and what creates disparate outcomes and what leads to people dying and what leads to food insecurity and what leads to conditions that don't make it possible for nuestra gente to be able to thrive and survive. Pero we are educators, and that's what makes us different. And so politics aside, we got to be able to put that aside because it's not about me and it's not about you. It's about serving this. And we need to be able to put our shit in our pockets so that the next generation has a pathway to come forward and sit in those same seats. Our ancestors were there. And because they were, we are. Our elders were there. And because they were, we are. Our elders are still here. And because they're still here, we are. Now we're here. And because we're here, our youth will be here too. We are 20% of the population. We're going to be 25% by 2020, by 2060. But what the hell does all that mean unless we understand who we are as a non-monolithic group advancing a political agenda, because it has always been political. There's not one day and time historically where the term Latino or Hispanic or Latina or Latinx or Spanish surname has not been political. And if we understand that from the context of Latin America, the history, if we understand that going back to enslavement and bondage, if we understand that through the eyes of indigenous ancestors, then we understand how the hell we got to where we are today. And then we understand what the hustle looks like. And it has to be about that hustle. I want to frame this. I want to frame this like this because so often we operate. I'm the VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, not in DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to stop conflating terms because that gives others dominant identities and systems an opportunity to bastardize the work. And that's what we're dealing with today. It's the bastardization of the work. Everything not dominant was thrown into a conflated acronym. Catch all. And so that Black excellence cannot stand on its own, or Latino excellence cannot stand on its own, or queer excellence cannot stand on its own. All that that could stand on its own. That's important for us to know. DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, has very particularities around it that make it what it is. So for those of you who carry foundation, theoretical background, and anchoring and understand the canon, please, it's on us to be able to take that and pass it along to the next generation, but also to our peers. And then for those of us who get into the work in whatever different ways, not theoretically grounded, but learning as we go, let's do our best to have that on lockdown so that we are best prepared for moments like this. You see, I'm like Vin Diesel in Triple X. If you have seen that movie when they dropped the homie off in Colombia, like they were going to scare the shit out of him, and he just stands there on the plane before the chute kind of takes him back, and he's like, I live for this shit. I am prepared. I knew this moment was coming. I didn't know if it was coming now. I didn't know it was going to come 20 years later, but I knew it was coming. So this should not surprise anyone. And for anyone that took on the role, took on these jobs, took on our roles as advocates for student success and assuring that students are successful in their particular spaces, please know that it's not always about food. Let's flip the tongue so that when somebody says, I'm in the mood for something ethnic, you say, okay, hot dogs and burgers, not habichuelas con arroz, because that's not ethnic to me. I eat that shit every day. Epistemic reframing. The moment we understand diversity, equity, and inclusion as a canon, and we give it that epistemic power, it is the moment that scholars and intellectuals cannot push back in the same way. Why? Because if you are truly an intellectual, a scholar, if you are truly someone that values empirical data, both qualitative and quantitative, and there is a data demonstrating same outcomes over and over again, and you still choose to go against that, then you must question yourself as an intellectual. You see what I'm saying? This cannot be a sidebar. This is a canon. This is a discipline. There is literature and bodies of work on this, going back all the way to the 1960s, and if we include Nate Turner, back to the 1600s. I'm just saying. This is an epistemic shift. You got the homie over here, right? You got this white-appearing person. I'm going to call him a white-appearing person with blonde hair. And he's like, yo, I thought people celebrated Black History in the month of February. But this Black-appearing person says, nah, man, that's for y'all. Like, I'm me all year round. I celebrate me all year round. And because we often operate from frameworks, epistemically speaking, that are Western and have nothing to do with nuestra cultura, we always end up in some shit. Turn to someone next to you and say, vecino, vecino. No, hell no, that was some weak shit. Vecino. What are we doing in this shit? Vecino, vecino, we got this. I show up the way I show up because I place myself as my own epistemic center. And either you're going to deal with that or you're not. And I'm privileged to be here at MSU Denver, where I have a president and a senior leadership and a board of trustees and a team who allow me to show up as me. You're not going to catch me here no different than you're going to catch me in those meetings. I let my outcomes and the work speak for itself. That's what it's about. Because at the end of the road, whether I wear my Crocs or my chanclas, you know, chanclas, man, I struggle with that. I'm still traumatized, you know. Or I got my dope-ass Air Maxes on. I'm still going to produce good work. Now, the moment that you could correlate quality work and good outcomes to my sneakers, I'll start wearing shoes, all right? Epistemic center. We need to already flip how that goes. So let me read this from Linda to I. Smith. Y'all familiar with the colonizing methodologies? The very idea of post-colonial spaces is layered with an evocative of empires past, present, and future, complicated stories and identities, intimate and alienated relationships, shifting borders and contested terrains, ambivalent, partial, contradictory meanings. Within these spaces, people live and make sense of their lives. They occupy shifting spaces. They shift the spaces they occupy, and yet the spaces are the very same spaces that existed before. And that is our moment. Politics is a pendulum. We're gonna be good. We've been good. We're gonna go through some shit, but that's okay, because we've been there, and we're gonna be there again. And this is nuestra tierra to run with. You see, I'm in the spirit of Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde said, you cannot dismantle the slave master's house with the slave master's tools. And yet, in the conversation with Audre Lorde, I want to say, sister, but what if the slave master's tools never belonged to the slave master in the first place? What if those tools were hijacked from our fucking ancestors? And if they were hijacked from our ancestors, it's no wonder when we step into the slave master's house, we know and learn how to use the tools better than the slave master himself. That's us. That's where we're at. And it's hard to hear because a cultura that has borrowed and made itself from everybody else's cultura doesn't understand what it means when we step into spaces like Wakanda and say, oh, eso está familiar. That's my shit. Francisco Alarcón. How can I not bring this brother's work into this conversation, right? I carry my roots with me all the time rolled up. I use them as my pillow. That's the way we must show up so we can stay grounded and anchored and at peace. When all this started happening, people would come at me like back in the 2005 to 2008 when the recession started hitting. They were like, Michael, how is this impacting you? I'm like, mira, gente, I ain't got shit. This ain't hitting me at all. I got nothing to lose. Economically, I come from nothing, but culturally, I come from everything. And if I went back to everything, cultura, I'm gonna be all right. And that's where we are today. Again, if I lose everything and I go back to cultura, I'm gonna be all right. You see, mi mamá, for the testimonials and the narratives and the way that we need to share stories, and I'm gonna hit on those 5 S's that could help us get through. Mi mamá, she moved to New York when I was young. I grew up in the Heights. For any of y'all, familiar with the Heights, the 80s Heights, okay? Not the Heights you see today. There's a big difference. Bodega Soul Dreams was real. Now it's Bodega Soul Nightmares. Mamá se mudó. And my mom, she's like super forgiving. So I've also learned how to demonstrate restraint over time, how to be patient. My mom, I could get away with everything. And I used to get her mad on purpose because she sing. When she got mad, it was like the most beautiful thing when she got angry at me. She'd be like, pues papi, ya tú sabes, tú no puedes estar haciendo cosas así, papito, porque entonces, pues, ya tú sabes. And I'm like, that shit sounds beautiful. Please get mad at me more. Right? Until I did something really, really bad. And then you know what she did, man? It was chancla time. And she took off that chancla, that boomerang that I tried to hide, but she had a way of throwing it and that shit ended up right back in her hand. And no, not the fluffy American types. Not the ones that the dogs eat. Where's my chancla? The dog ate it. No, the dogs were not eating these chanclas. These were the leather-bound chanclas, man. When you got hemmed up with them, look, I'm not suggesting we engage in that behavior. I'm just saying they served a very particular purpose. She raised me, she said, Juni, es que I want you to do good porque tú sabes, and you got to go to college, and no quiero que te esfuerces como yo, and that you struggle like me. And I couldn't understand, but little by little, I began to understand. So I got in a lot of trouble growing up, right? But eventually I got into college and I went to Penn State. And of course, in mi juventud, and this is why these programs that serve Latinos matter, I didn't know what that meant for me. When I went to Penn State, I didn't see the opportunity. I got like Will Smith, Fresh Prince, man. I said, cha-ching. I was like, oh man, how far is this from Pittsburgh? How far is this from Bethlehem, PA? Man, I could go cut like 4 onions, break them. I saw dough. I saw business. And then I found myself. But I went to college so that my mom could have bragging rights in the hood. I didn't go for me. I wanted her to be happy. Because the third time I got locked up and she picked me up and she looked at me and I was just 15 years old, she looked at me like she was giving up on me, and that shit hurt. Because she was like, hey, Juni, yo tengo tú también, tus hermanos, tus hermanas, I got your sibs to worry about. And so I can't just keep coming and picking you up from the police station and juvie and all that shit. So I straightened out, got my grades up, went from basic to college prep, then to a couple honors classes. I was on my way up. You know, creativity and poetry was my way. I was in the community organizing since very, very young. And then I came back after the first year. Everybody started bum rushing me. And esta es mi mamá, though, I gotta love her. Everybody was like, yo, Mike, yo, we just heard you did like a whole year at the state pen, bro. What was that like, man? That's crazy, bro. Like, you were at the state pen, man. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? They were like, yeah, man. Like, that's like, yo, that's, bro, it's good to see you, bro. Glad you're all right. Man, I'm like, yo, who's spreading that rumor? They're like, your mom, bro. Your mom. Your mom is going around the community on some. Mi hijo, I'm so proud. Estoy orgulloso. Él está en state pen. A state pen. I was like, oh my God, hell no, man. I was like, mira, gente, man, I know I was bad, man. I'm not that bad. I was at Penn State. That's where I did my undergrad, Penn State. I know my mom is my mom telling everybody went to the state pen, the Penn State University, okay, man? Through TRIO CSP EOE program. Yes. And eventually went into the McNair and did some badass research. And I was like, I could see myself in education. I could influence some lives here. Reconciling our past. Look, as we get into this is wild because a lot of folks don't really know even our past and how we got here. And this matters, especially today. So when I'm talking about reconciling our past, I'm talking about the conquista. I'm talking about the enlightenment period. I'm talking about the Latin American revolutions that we hardly know anything about in the 1800s that coincided with the construction of the term Latino, Latina, or Latin America. It was a political agenda from the get-go. And we know, I'm not going to read all that. I just leave it there if you want to soak it in a little bit, that it started with the stray, right, in the Middle Passage. But we also know that since the 1500s, there's been a lot of stuff going on. But what people don't talk about a lot that's missing in this conversation is also the erasure and absence of Asian migrations to Latin America. So when people talk about Latinos being just Spanish and African and indigenous, yeah, we need to throw Asia up in that mix too. There was quite a bit of a large Asian influence in Latin America. We are truly the integrated cosmic people of the world. And no, not in the way that Jose Vasconcelos says so. I think I'll lean a little bit more on the way Gloria Anzaldía says so. What you see here is Latin America in 1800, still under largely European colonial rule and power. But then by the 1830s, most of those nations fought for their independence. And the reason that I bring this up historically and reconciling that past and understanding that is because that played a major role in a transnational and continental identity we now know as Latin America. That was an intentional political agenda that was led by yours truly, Francisco Bilbao, Chilean author, sociologist, and imperialist who was trying to figure out how do they still maintain control and power of an European identity by way of Spain, by way of Portugal, and by way of the Dutch as well, so that these nations are not all going in their separate ways, and to retain Spanish and to retain Portuguese. And their argument there in yellow was to distinguish between the oiled and rigid temperaments of Anglo-Saxons and the hypothetically, this shit is just wild when you read it, the hypothetically warm, enlightened souls of others living in the Americas. What he's basically saying is Spanish barbarism was not as bad as Anglo-colonialism. Spanish barbarism was insanely bad. Let's just start off with the fact that 92% of enslaved Africans came through what we now know as Colombia. And let's also go with how they were treated like cattle. So instead of creating a bondage system like the US did, though the US learned from Spain, and that's important, it's almost like TJ, y'all know him as Thomas Jefferson. TJ read the notes of Hernan Cortez and said, oh man, we can't go through this shit like they did, and created a system of bondage so that they could breed their own commoditized labor. But in Latin America, get 100,000. Boom, then shit, they dead. Some of them escaped to the mountains with the indigenous people. Go get 100,000 more. Go get 100,000 more. Go get 100,000 more. And then you mix that up with indentured servants from Asia, from Europe, and even some parts of Africa. Not everyone that came from Africa was enslaved. We need to know our narratives, our history, and we need to reconcile that with a level of truth and accuracy that allows us to step into the present moment healthier, more keenly attuned, and with a strategic ambiguity that makes it hard for the opposition to be able to counter the work that we're advancing truly to advance humanity and success for all human beings. Let me hit on Hispanic. Okay, everybody gets caught up on this Hispanic versus Latino thing, and everybody gets into arguments and shit. And you know, I always studying this and being a decolonizer, I sit with this because, particularly because both terms are horrible. One really speaks to Spanish speaking. One is particularly connected to Spain. That's Hispanic. But Hispanic in the US was started to be used in the 70s, particularly coined by Gracelia Flores Hughes through the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare when they were conducting a study on the education performance of Native American, Mexican American, Puerto Rican, and Cuban communities. Assimilation. That was a way of them trying to assess how well these people were assimilating and acculturating to American society. But you know who was wilder? I can't even imagine what that room was like and the confusion when folks were like, I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. Like, we're trying to capture these people, but like, they don't look the same. They're different, and they come from all different colors, and like, this is some hard shit. How do we do this? Some of them are black, some of them are brown, some of them look like this, some of them are short, some of them got blue eyes, some of them are white. Now, the reality is that a lot of them back in the day were white. And a lot of them today still are. It doesn't make them bad, but I think we got to get away from this idea that Latinos who are white-oriented or trying to appear white. No. If you go to places like Uruguay, Argentina, Paraguay, parts of Brazil, yes, even the islands, there are white Latinos. It doesn't make them any less culturally relevant. Yes, not all of them can dance. I've seen some shit, man. I thought every Latino could dance, and until I saw some Latinos dance, I was like, oh, Papa, bro, I'm gonna get you some lessons, man. You know, even your merengue is off. And merengue should be pretty simple. You know? No, you're not ready for bachata, bro. It doesn't make them any less culturally relevant, but they are white Latinos. And in their countries, whether it's Chile or Peru, even some ID cards for some time had them identified as Blanco, because the caste system in Latin America and the pigmentocratic efforts that happened in Latin America put the caste system in the US in shame. Especially when you account for gender, race, the construction of gender, and then a word people don't talk about a lot, Marianismo, that we don't account for religion and the way religion played a role, especially in the suppression of women and women not being able to be themselves. That has to be acknowledged as part of that, because power was tied to the relationship between men and women and where they were from or how much blood they had in them. And that has carried over the years. That's not gone just because the caste system is formally gone. It's no different than the treatment, especially of dark-skinned people in the US. It's not gone just because the system of slavery is gone formally. And we do that in Latino America too. That's why we grow up. I remember when people be like, ay, mira ese nenito, qué trigueñito, qué bonito. And when you start to sit with that, what they're really saying is, Daniel, you're lucky, man. You got like just a perfect touch of brown, but if you were just a light bit darker, your ass would have been assed out. But all the white babies, oh man, they get everything thrown at them. Ay, qué bonito, qué clarito, y esos ojitos, azulito. We must confront this colorism in our cultura. So then it's no wonder when we think about 1848, and just by the way, I know people be beefing about how much land Mexico lost, and I get it, but by the way, it wasn't Mexico's land to begin with. That was Spanish, then leading to, then it became Mexico, but that was all indigenous Meso land. And then we get to this, and it's wild because everybody's like, oh man, no, we should have went to war. And look, Mexico was so depleted after their own war during this time. If they would have tried to go to war with the US, there's a good chance that today we would have been the 98 states of America. That was a survival tactic to say, oh, damn, you're coming after your shit back. The loan that you took, the money this early, and you want this land, toma. So we could still sobrevivir y sostener and sustain esta cultura en Mexico. And look at where we are now. Badass Mexican president. What? So it's no wonder that the places that have the largest amount of Latinos is the Southwest. Because that shit is Latinidad right from the dome. It never changed. It never changed. And you see it here in Denver, and it's a beautiful thing to see. I sit with some people and they'll be like, yeah, man, I'm a Denverite. I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, I'm 8th generation Mexican American. I'm like, oh shit. They're the ones that were like, yeah, my mom was here, my abuela was here, my bisabuela was here, my bisabuela was here, and all these people was here, and they went through some shit too. And yet the US did so well to play to the politics of polarization, no different than now, so that dark-skinned Latinos or Mexicans at the time had no privileges, but light-skinned and white-appearing Latinos had the relational positionality similar to the way that Aida Hurtado describes her work in The Color of Privilege, to buy into or not, in a way that dark-skinned people cannot. Turn to your neighbor, vecino, and say, y ahí se jodió la cosa. But we must reconcile, because here we are now in the present, right? And in the present, what does it mean to be all this Latino, Latina, Latine, Latinx, Hispanic in higher education today? Look, I don't care what you call yourself. I really don't. But you know what I do care about? I care that you do good work, that you care for your community, that you take care of your students exactly the way you invited them onto your campuses. that you hold your institution accountable to its mission that says it's all about diversity and excellence and assuring that every person has the opportunity to be successful, no different than anyone else. Here at MSU Denver, for example, we're Anchor Mission. We're a FUBU institution. Y'all remember back in the day, FUBU, for us, by us? We were built by the community, for the community. And we hold our institution accountable to that every single day. And the same thing with our modified open access mission. We get students here who come with 2.5s, not because they're not brilliant, but because regrettably, systems don't fund education and support them in the same way. So they come perhaps underperforming, not achieving to their brilliance, but it's up to us at Metro and it's up to us at other institutions that you work at to bring students up to par, because that is public service. That is the public good. That is at the heart of serving this. This was a study done in Chicago back in around a little bit after 2000. And more recently, there was one done in LA where they went around. There was a square, Zacapa Square, a square there in LA, popular little shopping spot with a large Latino community, where they asked the question, what does it mean to be Latinos? Here's some of the answers people gave and came up with. Let's go through this, because this is wild. Homie here said Latino means identity crisis. Brasileño, Ecuatoriano. Homie said, yo, I'm still trying to figure shit out. Like most of us are, but we don't want to wrestle with that. But that's real. Homegirl said, I am Spanish. Not all Latinas are from Mexico. I get it. Because even me, man, if I'm in Florida, I'm Cuban, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican, and today, man, I'm anything and everything in South Central America. If I'm in New York, I'm Puerto Rican or Dominican. If I'm in Cali, I'm Afro-Mexicano. But yo, what's crazy is if I'm in Michigan, I'm Arab. I'm gonna learn the language one day because I keep getting get off guard. Folks will come and talk to me. I'm like, I wish. Homegirl says, soy Latina, Mexicana, Panamanian, American, bicultural, bilingual, proud, right? She acknowledges that she is part, binational, of different culturas, and she embraces that at a different level. She understands that. You see where we're going with how people identify just differently? So we can't throw all our chips into this monolithic understanding of Latinidad or Hispanidad. We cannot. We are the most diverse, Latinos are the most diverse people in the world. Oh my God, we got people from everywhere. I even know Latinos will come up on me just speaking Russian. I'm like, oh shit. And when you ask them where they're from, it's like, yeah, I'm from Russia and I'm second generation, on and on. You got homies here who say, I am Black and Cuban. My culture is faith, familia, and hard work. Now you see Latinos start to embed things like values. It's like when mommy, I don't know if y'all grew up like this. I'm going to assume y'all did. When mommy comes to me like, Junior, tú tienes que hacer muy bien. No me abochornes porque tú eres latino y latinos trabajan duro. Y latinos cuidan su familia. Y latinos tienen mucho valor. Y Latin, right? And they add all these values to our identity. And that shit puts hella pressure, man. Oh, man, I went to college, man, and I tell you, man, a month later, I started seeing a therapist. Like, I don't know if I could live to mommy's expectations. Homie just kept it simple and said raza, unity. And we have to understand the difference between Jose Vasconcelos' raza in Mexico and how problematic that was, and raza and the Chicano political movement here in the United States and the way it was reclaimed. You see, I don't teach students to show up, to belong. These systems, even the best of systems, by way of the work that we do, were not created for us nor for our students. I show my students, we teach our students how to reclaim, how to take your shit back. You already belong, so when you come ready to reclaim everything that they have that's already yours. When you invite students and even staff and faculty with that level of invitation, it is a very different framing than try to show up to belong. You already belong. And lean on the communities around to make it happen. It doesn't have to be on campus. Then you have homegirl who said, I'm Hispanic. It means to help my children be the best they can be. I'm Dominican. My culture is merengue, sancocho, familia, dedication, salsa, y sazón. And then she put an exclamation mark at the end of that shit. Right? And the reason that I'm loving that, well, because it says sancocho. And if any of y'all who haven't had sancocho, and sancocho is truly a peasant dish of wonder. It's like the ratatouille dish in Ratatouille. And they're like, are you sure that's what you want to make? And then the homie, let his guard down. And he was like Igor. And then he was like the softest heart and gave all his money to the rat to build another restaurant. That's what sancocho will do to you. And then soy chicana, split Mexican blood and American traditions. But then we forget, right? Afro-Latinidad. The Black Latinos in the house that nobody gives props to, and people have just forgotten, and even the race census or the census count trying to erase that. And it's hard work, but let me give you an example of how we navigate and negotiate systems of colonialism, understanding that it's not about you. You see, I led the largest census grant in the state of Colorado back in 2019, and I struggled because I struggled with people marking me as something that they don't even know what the hell they're saying, and I know very well who I am. So why do I want to go to different hard-to-count communities and be like, but you got to count yourself, but you got to count yourself, but you got to count yourself. But then I understood, shit, this is not about me. Because if they count themselves, then more money is going to flow to those communities federally so that they can then stand on and be able to support their own gente and their own cultura in those communities. So yes, count yourself. It's not about me. And let's go get that dough, because that dough is ours. And the reason I say that is because we get caught up, and I'm telling them, I'm going to get a shirt. Don't beat me to it, man. If I see y'all want one of the shirts, man, I'm going to tell y'all right now, don't go get it yet. Wait until I come out with that shit. It's going to read, I don't do petty. I don't do petty. I'm not going to get caught up in the politics of separation and the politics of who's wrong and right. At the end, we're here all trying to make a living and trying to get to the other side. And we're trying to raise the next generation to be the dopest that they can be. And hopefully that's way better than us. So here we are with the actions that we're dealing with. All the EOs, all the legal pieces, all the different pressures, media, the retaliation, the terminations, everything on professional development and trainings and what we can do and cannot do. And look, the reality is, gente, que dear colleague letters are not the law. They don't really mean shit. I just want to say that. And I'm not saying don't be worried. I'm not saying don't be cautious. We still must be cautious. I'm just saying that if we, as institutions, serving Latinos and institutions with a high representation of Latino Hispanic professionals in our communities, preemptively comply and over-comply, we're doing the work for them. Let them really put that pressure on. If you truly understand law and the way that it works, systems are systems, processes are processes, there's gonna be pivots. And if we really needed to eventually pivot and turn the page, I don't care if I call my office the office of automobiles, chairs, and walls. So as long as the work is getting done in the trenches and the students are getting to the other side and they are succeeding, because diversity went through different formulations throughout history, everything from minority affairs to Black affairs to multicultural this to intercultural leadership to now DEI to belonging, and then you add the Jedi and you grab the sword and you swap that shit, now it goes through many different iterations. At the end, the work is the work that is the work and the work. So let's shape some futures. We know things have changed. What's regrettable about this is that several years back, things like education were actually at the one or number two most important for Latino families and communities, as were some other pieces like unemployment. But now it's inflation and cost of living, and things like crime and gun violence are at the top in ways that were never there for Latinos before. Right? Immigration, healthcare are all kind of rising to the top. That's what we were going into the elections. But then everybody's talking about this blue wall. But here's the reality around Latinidad, gente. I want to say this with a level of realness, but I want to say this with a level of love. Latinos come in all shapes, sizes, beliefs, ideals, understandings. Some of them lean more conservative, some of them lean more liberal. But if we're not attentive to a Latino constituency in a way that first acknowledges and respects its humanity, we're going to lose a lot. I'm not saying that there's right or wrong thinking. I have my own thoughts. I'm always going to lean left, at least as people describe. I simply want people to live their best lives the way they want to live their best lives and to live with love. And that's really all that matters more than anything else. My son, he's openly gay. He came out when he was 15. And I kind of knew it, but I wasn't going to bring it up as a father. I was going to be like, Papi, are you gay? Porque blah, blah. Because that's my own bias, right? I'm making already assumptions. So I waited until he was ready to come out. He finally came out. He was mad one day. He flips out and he starts crying. And he says, Dad, I'm fucking gay. And I just smiled. And I laughed a little bit. I said, that's what's up, Papa. You're still in trouble. You got home late, bro. So, right. I want to speak to this community from a place of how I grew up and how toxifying Catholicism and Pentecostalism and all these religions could be if we don't truly understand that those are our choices. We don't need to impose that on everybody. If we truly believe that God is God and we're going to go somewhere and God's going to look out for us and we're going to enter heaven and the gates and all that shit that happens there, whatever it is that happens there, then we let people be who they are and we let them have that conversation with their creator. It is not up to us to dictate policy that permeates the taking away the rights for others to not have the same rights as everyone else. That's shitty. I want to just say that flat out loud. It's not our role or responsibility to make decisions that take away the rights for people to be who they are. Period. Period. We're not, immigration crisis, but like, when the hell have we not been in an immigration crisis? I'm just saying. We're seeing more conservative values emerge, but they've always been there. But we're not doing a good job. We're not doing a good job paying attention at pluralism. So we got to account for what this electorate looks like and what it means for us, why we're here, and how we could get past it. Cultura, historia, identity. But we have to understand trauma and generational experiences. Generations matter. The way that we're going to get through a lot of this, I always say, is through the 5 S's. Take them down. The first one is sacrifice. This work is about sacrifice. We're always going to have to sacrifice a little bit of ourselves, and that's okay. The sacrifice that we're making today is nothing compared to the sacrifices that our ancestors and our elders have made, that you don't get to maybe go get a fresh pair of sneaks or go out clubbing for 2 weekends. It's an okay sacrifice versus death. Sacrifice. We need to reframe and understand sacrifice in today's realities and moment. The second one, struggle. Nothing comes easy. And I could quote Frederick Douglass or any others that talk about struggle and how struggle you get to where you're at, or one of my favorite authors and the way he talks about struggle, Carlos Munoz in Youth, Power, and Identity, right? That without struggle, there's nothing to win. You must go through a struggle. Today's struggle looks like nothing. Today's struggle is like, just like for this week, I'm just going to stay off Instagram. Today's struggle means that maybe we struggle a little bit, but we still have food on the table. We still generally have a roof over our head. We still generally have people to lean on. Not the case back in the day. And I know you've heard these historias. I've heard them from my, abuelos and abuelas all the time. They're like, Junior. And then they talk to me like Bad Bunny, though, because you got to understand Jíbaro culture. I grew up first before New York in the mountains. They're like, Junior, tú sabes. Tú sabes que todos los días nosotros no teníamos ni zapatos. No teníamos ni zapatos para andar. Estábamos en los montes así calzados. Por todo el tiempo. I'm so proud of Bad Bunny, man. He took our lengua and turned it into a freaking multi-million-dollar industry. Man, I'm jealous, though, too. I'm like, damn, I should have done that shit. I could have came out like, hey. Por mi cultura. So what do we need to consider then to understand what's best as we think equitable outcomes? And as I begin to also bring us here to an end. First, take responsibility. Be accountable. Take ownership. We don't do this enough. We think that we do. But self-implication and self-awareness and our ability to really wrestle with ourselves is going to matter today more than ever. Because if we don't wrestle with ourselves first and foremost, we're going to have a tough time leaning into the type of servingness that's going to matter. Especially when we think about where our students are today and how complex their intersectionalities are these days. They are becoming who they are, and they are leaning into and growing into who they are and need to be, not who we can want them to be. And if that's the future of tomorrow, let me tell you, man, I feel pretty damn good. Validate. It's okay to affirm, value, while respecting our humanities. You know, sometimes I'm invited to do sessions at very red spaces. And there's a difference between red and Trumpian. I could do red spaces, but I have no issues. You know, I'm a fiscal conservative. There you go. Pero this is next level when you step into some of the spaces. You're like, oh shit. I went to do a session at a town nearby that's very red. It was do the training for older faculty, 90 of them. There was one Somalian. There was one Chicana that was like a sixth generation Chicana, so very American, but I want to be clear, it doesn't make her any less Chicana. We got to get past that shit. If someone doesn't speak Spanish, it doesn't make them any less Latino. If someone doesn't know how to dance, it doesn't make them any less Latino. If someone doesn't know how to fix a car or change the oil, it doesn't make them any less Latino. We got to stop putting those labels on nuestros hermanas y hermanos Latinos because they don't carry some bit of cultura that doesn't matter. It's like when people come at me and they're like, yo, Mike, tu hijo, él no habla español the way that it should be talked. I'm like, but Papa, man, Puerto Ricans are like the Spanish patois of the world. We took Spanish and we fucked it up. And we did it on purpose. That's what people don't know. We did that on purpose. If you understand Jíbaro culture of the las montañas y los montes de las islas, you will understand that. But that's all to say, when people come at that, I say, mira, I don't need my son to know Spanish because that's the way he preserves his culture. I need my son to know Spanish because that's how he's going to have access to his history. His cultura is his cultura and whatever he makes off of it. Because Anglo cultura, Spanish cultura, none of those cultura are any of our culturas. They're both imperial cousins that we carry with us today. That we have courage. That we're always learning and growing, but we're willing to lay in. Humility is everything. Humility today is everything in the way that we lean in, but it has to be audacious humility. Because we can't continue to show up así. No, está bien, porque que yo no, sí, Because what happens? What happens when we show up humble to the classroom? We know what happens. Y'all know what happens. We don't raise our hand because we don't want to shine. We don't want to esto lo otro. Y entonces, what happens, right? Professors think that we lack confidence. But we're just being humble. So let's figure out how to contextualize humility and own our brilliance and shine. And we need to whoop someone's ass in the metaphorical, literal sense, not in the literal sense, okay? Don't go whooping nobody's ass. I'm talking about own your brilliance and the space in academia and lean into who you are and what you carry and what you bring to the table and your worth. That we listen generously and we collaborate. Man, we struggle to collaborate because our egos and prides, we need to put all that shit to the side. It's about the work and the outcomes. Because when we see those students graduate, that's what matters. And that we cultivate trust. We got to show up with an endeavorness, a sort of a spirit of openness and righteousness and mutuality, the social contract that says we are here for something greater and deeper than what we are. Awareness, be familiar with the dynamics inherent when people from different groups interact. Acknowledge the role that power and cultura plays in relationships and society. Let's be mindful about how we show up. Let's allow ourselves to get checked when we need to get checked without taking that shit personal. And appreciation, the ability to adapt to different just intercultural styles. I had to do that. I'm going to tell you, man, Mexicanos especially, y'all use different words. We get shit twisted. Y'all talking about pantalla. I'm talking about pantalla. I'm talking about earrings. Y'all talking about fucking TV screen. These are essential to moving the cultura and success forward. Family connections, extended family, parents, influencers, comunidad. Financial stability and economy is important for us, but it's also see it from a place of generational wealth and investment. Education and literacy, consistency and structure. Although don't be too structured, because then you know you're going to have that hijo that's going to get to college and act a fool because they didn't get a little flex time when they were younger. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. I was like, está hablando de mi hijo. Shit. Integrity and respect, access and affordability. That's why we come here for this dream. I'm not going to call it the American dream. I'm just going to call it a dream that we as a non-monolithic, incredibly diverse group of people share. Why? Because we want to create a generation and a future that is better for whoever comes next than the way that we received it. That's why. Yeah. So let me read this quote because this quote is powerful, and then I'm going to end it with a piece. Civility is treating others with appropriate courtesy and respect. This is from Ed Langerek, badass philosopher, now retired. Much of what it involves is context relative and is often relative mainly to what is needed for a shared task or a mutual endeavor. Then the question of what civility requires in a given context or association is related to the question of what we're trying to accomplish together. Notice that the context may well include people who are strangers and even past opponents. So we cannot rely on affection, friendship, or familiarity. We cannot rely on affection, friendship, or familiarity to set boundaries. It is something we intentionally bring to the situation, not necessarily something that flows from natural feelings. Notice also that it involves patience and restraint. It has much to do with what we will not do to each other as what we will do for each other. The mutual endeavorship really matters in the work that we do today because we serve students from rural communities, we serve students from urban communities, all the suburbs in between, and each year we have to do it over and over and over again. So let me leave you with a little love, a motto that I just created called Reclaiming Power. As practitioners, I hope, as faculty and staff, that you're protecting your joy and your spirit and you're engaging in spiritual reclamation. Systems are systems, mi gente. There's no reason to allow the systems to hijack our spirits or our joy. Please, you're going to repeat that shit with me. I will not allow sistemas to hijack my joy nor my spirit. Hell no. Offer yourself some grace and pace. It's okay. Sometimes we move fast and sometimes it's okay to slow down. Because if you are not there for yourself, you're not going to be good for the people that need you the most. Walk through pathways of oppression with absolute liberation. I open most of my meetings with my teams with that. Today, we're going to walk liberated through systems of oppression. That we pay attention to our epistemic heart and we show up with mending and reconciliatory intentions. Right? Back to the essence. I gave you struggle. I gave you sacrifice. I'm going to also give you service. And then I'm going to offer solidarity. And the last one, sharing. Let's share. Because sharing is the medicine that allows us to get through to the next day. And then radical love and radical hospitality. Love is everything. And the more we show up with it and put the petty to the side, the more we're going to be good. The more we're going to be able to walk and live longer and do the good work that we do. So, I leave this quote for you to take on because I really appreciate that Cesar Chavez understood, like Dr. King, that the best way to serve our communities is to also think about every other community. Hispanic servingness is not just about Latinos and Hispanics. It is truly about everyone. When we are educators, we hold on to our wounds, but we also hold on to the wounds of those from dominant societies and cultures that share space with us. That's what it means to be an educator. Puerto Rock Jiba slang to close it. 4 seconds. Give me 2. Levántate, Boricua. Wake up to the sweet chants de los gallos croqueando. Smell the sweet scents of naranjas, guayabas, quenepas, tamarindo, guanábana. And don't forget the island coco con los locos lounging en la esquina, pente con los machetes waiting to enlighten you. Con un sabor de leche fresca y malta, una mezcla de caña, azúcar y molaza. And if you need to translate for your partner, be like, they're like, what the fuck is he saying? Be like, oh man, he's going in. Y dale para adelante con un juego de béisbol con madera y bolón. And the kids jugando canica y patea la lata, cantando la música del encanto. La tierra de Borinquen, donde he nacido yo. Orgullo por la isla del encanto con playas y palmas y trópicas plantas. Un paraíso de montaña protected by nuestros padres taíno, español, and africano, asiático, and historia mixpel, expel, don't tell, let's dispel. And next time that mommy says, pero mira, Juni, papá, mira, ve abajo y búscame la cosa encima de esto por allá. You know exactly what she's talking about. Watching los jíbaros y la salsa, bailando la salsa, el merengue y la bachata, o a los chicos y la chica con el reggaetón se encuentran en la charla. Toca yanche papo, yanche papito, pero mío, eso está gufiado, pero me gusta, brother, me gusta eso con cojones. Los caballeros, compañeros, with mouthfuls y llame, yautía. En las damas, hablando de las novelas con platos y batata y yuca y vianda. Todos jangueando en la finca con los sapos de lagartijo, escondidos adentro de madera los tubos, masticando chicharrón con arroz y gandules, habichuela tierna y plátano maduro, terminando con un flan, un cafecito con leche, una maltita o una cola champán. And then, bueno, pues ya tú sabes, alabar al Señor. Y no te olvides de Sábado Gigante porque siempre en domingo ya se acabó. Y el fin del día con la familia te retira, acuéstate y duerme boricua y duerme y dale para abajo chileando con el sol y los conquí cantando. Thank you. We got this shit.
Hermano, man, broke the house, the stage, brought it all down, and then reconstructed it with love, celebración, joy. Much for us to take notes, take back, pass it forward, pass on the blessings. Hermano Michael, muchísimas gracias. Let's give him another round of applause, man. Joy and celebration. Joy and celebration for our community. Joy and celebration for our women, as today is International Women's Day. Joy and celebration because I'm humbled by my daughters as we try to pass it forward. And one's named after Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. One's named Emma Sophia, universal wisdom, as they teach me and allow me to grow myself. And then my mother, my abuelas, who made me the healer that I strive to be. But moreover, as an organization, we are committed to supporting the women, to supporting our community. I personally believe when it comes to our community and education, that's our future. That's the leadership we need. And that's where we need to be as a community. So gracias. Make sure we celebrate our women in our lives today. Thank you, all of you. We will continue the celebration, continue the joy. Gracias, Michael. We have some sessions to get to keep sharing the wisdom, the love, and the passion, the celebration. We'll be back at lunchtime to share some more love and celebration here at 12:10. And then we'll come back and celebrate much later at the end of the day. I look forward to seeing you all. I'm here for you. I'm here to serve. I'm blessed to serve. Echale duro. Celebrate, enjoy. Gracias.